The honourable member for Grande, Prairie-Wapiti.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Alberta's forest producers are working to stop the spread of mountain pine beetle. These producers are making concerted efforts to harvest affected timber first, and through innovative processes make use of the trees that have been infested with the beetle. If not stopped, the pine beetle could destroy our forests and threaten the environment and economy. To the Minister of Forestry, to what extent are you supporting the efforts of the forest industry against the mountain pine beetle?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and the member for the question. So our government remains committed to the control of the mountain pine beetle. The member is right. The mountain pine beetle is still relevant within the province. There's approximately 10 contractors that do work throughout the winter in taking out infected trees. That is our most effective form of control. And this year, by the end of this month, they will have taken out and harvested about 90,000 trees. Again, the most effective form of control that we have. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given that the mountain pine beetle is threatening many forests in Jasper National Park, and given that these parks, although they are in Alberta, are managed under the direction of the federal government, to the Minister, to what extent are you working with your federal counterpart to create a strategy for the pine beetle in the national parks of Alberta?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and the member for the question. There's a bit of a good story, bad story here. The infestation that was happening in the Whitecourt Grand Prairie area is actually about 35% decrease what it had been. So our efforts there have been successful, as well as Mother Nature has played a role there too. But the bad story of that, the member is absolutely right. The infestation in the Hinton-Edson area has gotten worse. It's depending on what area you are, it's 1 to 4 times as bad as it had been. So we're going to be concentrating our efforts to control the mountain pine beetle in that area in particular. As for the mountain pine beetles coming out of the national park, I'm afraid they have come out. They're infesting that area now. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given that last year Alberta suffered devastating fires in Fort McMurray, and given that the damage from the pine beetles leaves forests extremely vulnerable to fires, and given that the national parks are not clearing out trees infested with the beetle, so these large areas are just matches waiting to be struck. To the Minister, how are you ensuring the safety of Albertans in areas like Hinton when the beetle-damaged trees in Jasper National Park could fuel another Fort McMurray fire?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and the member for the important question. My understanding from there's a new superintendent of Jasper National Park that is looking at this issue a little more seriously than perhaps other supervisors of the park had. Our staff continues to work with the staff of Jasper National Park to see what more can be done. At the same time, as a department, what we do have control is the control infestation in Hinton-Edson area, and like I said before, that we're going to concentrate our efforts there over the coming years as we see that infestation as amongst the worst in the province. Thank you, Madam Speaker.